The cold wind bit its face as she stepped out of the research station. The twin moons of seven hung low in the purple sky, casting strange shadows across the crystalline forest. She pulled her jacket and walked toward the trading post where humans and aliens met to exchange goods. Which meant she studied alien life. She had been on this frontier planet for 6 months now, learning about They were wolf-like creatures who walked on two legs and lived in groups they called packs. They were bigger than humans, covered in thick fur and had sharp teeth. But they were intelligent and wanted to trade with Earth. Today was a routine supply exchange. The humans brought tools and technology. They brought rare crystals and metals from their mining operations. Wasn't directly involved in the trade, but she liked to watch. Every interaction taught her something new about behavior. She stood near the edge of the trading post, her tablet in hand, taking notes. The pack had arrived an hour ago. There were about 20 of them, led by a massive male named. His title was, which meant he was a warrior and leader. His fur was dark gray with scars crossing his face. He spoke through a translation device that hung around his neck. The trading was going well. Minu, her colleague from Earth, was handling the human side. He was good at negotiations, always calm and polite. Watched as boxes were exchanged and documents were signed on electronic pads. That's when she noticed the cub. It was small, maybe only 3 seasons old in years. The cub had light brown fur and walked at the back of the pack, but it wasn't walking normally. It was limping badly, dragging its back leg. Even from a distance, could see the leg was swollen and the cub's face showed pain. She frowned and moved closer, trying to get a better look. The cub stumbled and nearly fell. None of the adult turned to help. They just kept moving, loading their cargo, preparing to leave. His heart clenched. The cub whimpered softly, a sound that cut through the cold air. She took another step forward, her medical training screaming at her that the leg was infected. Without treatment, the cub could die. "Don't," Minu's voice came from beside her. He had noticed where she was looking. "Don't interfere. We don't understand their culture yet." "But that cub is hurt," said quietly. "Look at it, that leg needs medical attention." "They have their own ways," Minu insisted. "Maybe they handle these things differently. We can't just jump in." Bit her lip and watched. The pack was finishing up. They started to move away from the trading post, heading back toward their transport vehicles in the distance. The injured cub tried to follow but fell behind quickly. Then something terrible happened. The pack kept walking. The cub was being left behind completely. Couldn't stop herself. She walked forward quickly, her medical scanner already in her hand. The cub had collapsed in the snow, breathing hard. She knelt beside it, activating her scanner to check the injury. The scanner beeped. The leg was definitely broken and badly infected. Without treatment soon, the infection would spread. Then felt it, a change in the air, complete silence. She looked up slowly. Every single had stopped moving. All 20 of them had turned around and were staring directly at her. Their glowing yellow eyes were fixed on her kneeling form. Not one of them moved. They just stared. His blood ran cold. Had she done something wrong, broken some rule? The pack leader began walking toward her. His massive form cast a long shadow. He moved slowly, deliberately. When he reached her, he lowered his head and sniffed the air around her. His eyes studied her face. The translation device around his neck crackled to life. His voice was deep and rumbling. "The human humans has acknowledged the weak cub." Swallowed hard. I saw that it was hurt. I'm a doctor. I can help." His ears twitched. "You saw, you stopped, you looked directly, you acknowledged." "Yes," said confused. "Of course I saw. How could I not?" Behind, the entire pack sat down in the snow. They arranged themselves in a circle, facing inward toward and the cub. They settled into position and became still, waiting. "What's happening?" called to Minu, who stood frozen near the trading post. Spoke again. "The pack awaits." "Awaits what?" asked. His yellow eyes bored into hers. You saw, you stopped. You acknowledged the suffering of a pack member, now you must fix it. This is the law, the pack waits for you to try. Felt her mouth go dry. You want me to treat the cub right now? The pack law of acknowledgement is sacred, said. His tone was serious, formal. When any being sees a pack member in need and acknowledges them by stopping, by looking, by showing awareness, that being becomes responsible. To see and then walk away after acknowledgement is the greatest dishonor. But I'm not even, protested. I'm human. This law doesn't apply to me. You stopped, you saw, you acknowledged. His voice was firm. The law applies to all who see. This is how the pack survives. If one falls and another sees, that other must help, or all will die. Looked around. Minyu had his hand over his face. The other humans at the trading post looked shocked. The pack remained seated, patient, waiting. The injured cub at her feet whimpered again. She took a deep breath. I'll need my medical supplies from the station. His ears perked up slightly. You will try. I'll try, said. But I'm not a miracle worker. I've never treated it before. I don't know if my medicines will work on your biology. Something changed in his expression. If a wolf-like alien could look relieved, he did. You see, you acknowledge, you try. This is the way of honor. The pack will wait. How long will you wait? Asked. As long as it takes, replied simply, until you have tried and either succeeded or failed with honor. Carefully lifted the cub. It was heavier than she expected but didn't fight her. She carried it toward the research station, her mind already racing through treatment options. Behind her, the entire pack remained seated in the snow, waiting. Minyu caught up to her at the station door. Do you understand what you've done? You've just bound yourself to some alien cultural protocol we don't understand. I saw a child in pain, Minyu said firmly. What was I supposed to do? Walk away and let it die? Maybe that's what their culture demands, Minyu argued. Maybe weak cubs are meant to be left behind. Natural selection. Looked at him with hard eyes. Then their culture is about to learn something about humans. We don't walk away from suffering, not when we can help. She carried the cub inside. Through the window, she could see the pack settling in for a long wait. 20 pairs of glowing eyes watched the station. Placed the cub on an examination table and began preparing her equipment. She had no idea if this would work. She had never treated an alien before, but she had seen the cub suffering and she couldn't unsee it. The pack waited outside and got to work. The cub lay on the examination table, breathing rapidly. Its name was, according to the medical file had transmitted to his computer, 3 seasons old, which meant barely more than a toddler in terms. The broken leg was worse than had initially thought. She worked through the night, her colleagues helping where they could. The station engineer was particularly useful. She helped modify the medical scanner to work with biology. The scanner showed that its bone structure was denser than human bone but had similar composition. The infection, however, was spreading fast. We need to operate, said, looking at the scans. The bone needs to be set properly, and we need to clean out the infection. The station commander stood in the doorway with her arms crossed. She was a severe woman in her 50s with short gray hair. Doctor, I need to remind you that this sets a dangerous precedent. What if every injured expects us to treat them now? Then we treat them, said simply, not looking up from her work. Isn't that what doctors do? You're not a physician, pointed out. I have medical training, and right now I'm all this cub has, pulled on surgical gloves. Besides, there's a pack of 20 sitting outside in the snow. They're not leaving until I at least try. Sighed, fine, but I'm filing a full report to Earth Command. This cultural entanglement could become a political nightmare. Through the station windows, the pack was visible in the moonlight. They hadn't moved. They sat in perfect stillness, just watching, waiting. Minyu brought a cup of coffee. They've been out there for 6 hours now. Not one of them has moved except to shift position slightly. This acknowledgement law must be incredibly important to them, mused, studying the anatomical diagrams had sent. Explained more of it to me. On there, the environment was so harsh that they evolved this cultural rule. If someone falls and others see it, those who see must help. Otherwise, nobody would survive. But they left the cub behind, Minyu pointed out. They were walking away. That's the key part, said. They weren't acknowledging it. They were pretending not to see. In their culture, if you don't stop and look directly at suffering, you're not obligated to help. It's only when you stop, look, and acknowledge that the law binds you. So they were trying to avoid the obligation by ignoring it, said, understanding dawning. And you walked right into it by stopping and kneeling down. Exactly, checked her surgical tools. Most species in the galaxy have probably learned to avoid eye contact with injured. It's easier to pretend you didn't see than to be bound by duty. But you couldn't do that, Minyu said softly. No, admitted. I saw a child in pain, how could I not stop? The surgery took 6 hours, worked carefully, adapting human surgical techniques to anatomy. The bone was set with a metal pin that fabricated from station materials. The infection was cleaned out and used a broad-spectrum antibiotic that she hoped would work on biology. She had tested it on a sample of blood first, and it seemed compatible. The most challenging part was creating a brace for the healing leg. Legs bent differently than human legs. Worked beside her, taking measurements and 3D printing a custom brace that would support the bone as it healed. When they finally finished, the sun was rising over 7, was exhausted. She had bags under her eyes and her hands shook slightly from fatigue, but was stable. The cub was breathing easier, the infection controlled, the bone properly set. Stepped outside the station. The cold morning air hit her face. The pack was still there, all of them. They had waited through the entire night without moving from their positions. Stood as approached. The other rose with him like a wave of fur and muscle. The cub asked, his voice rough with tension. Alive, said. The surgery was successful. The bone is set and the infection is being treated. We'll need to stay here for a few days while I monitor the healing, but I believe the cub will recover fully. For a long moment, just stared at her. Then his ears flattened against his head in what would later learn was a gesture of profound relief and respect. He lifted his head and howled. The sound was incredible. It started deep in his chest and rose to a piercing note that echoed across the crystalline forest. One by one, the other joined him. 20 voices in harmony, howling together in the dawn light. The sound shook the walls of the research station. Inside's colleagues covered their ears, but stood in the center of it all, feeling the sound vibrate through her bones. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. When the howling finally ended, approached, he lowered his massive head until it was level with hers. The human who mends has honored the acknowledgement law. You saw, you tried, you succeeded. The pack names you pack friend. This is a bond that does not break. I just did what any doctor would do, said quietly. No, corrected. Most species in the galaxy have learned not to see. They avoid our young when they are injured. They turn their eyes away so they will not be bound. But you, human, you saw and could not look away. This is strength we did not expect. Over the next 3 days, healed in the research station. The cub was surprisingly cheerful despite the injury. Spent hours sitting with, learning sounds and teaching the cub simple English words. Called her friend in a chirping voice that made her smile. The pack remained nearby, setting up a temporary camp. Visited daily to check on. He brought gifts, crystals, furs, and data files about culture and biology. So you may better understand those you have chosen to help, he explained. On the 3rd day, was strong enough to walk with the brace. The cub limped but no longer dragged the leg. The infection was completely gone. Removed the pin and adjusted the brace for long-term healing. When came to collect, he brought the entire pack with him. They arranged themselves in a formal pattern, and spoke in his own language before switching to the translator. The pack has decided. Humans will be taught our ways. We will share our knowledge. And if any human sees and acknowledges them in need, we will honor their attempt to help, whether they succeed or fail. That's very generous, said. It is wisdom, replied. We have learned that humans cannot help but see. It is your nature. Other species choose blindness, but humans choose to look. This is a rare thing in the galaxy. Minyu stepped forward. I need to ask, what would have happened if had walked away after acknowledging? His expression grew cold. Then she would have carried the mark of dishonor. No pack would have trusted her or any human again. The shame would have been permanent. Minyu paled. So by stopping to help, she risked our entire species' relationship with yours. Yes, said simply, but she did not know this. She stopped because she could not do otherwise. This is why we trust her. She did not calculate. She simply saw and acted. Hugged's leg before leaving, a gesture the cub had learned from watching humans. Knelt and hugged back, feeling the soft fur against her cheek. Friend chirped, pack friend. Yes, whispered, pack friend. As the pack departed, walking back toward their transport, stood outside the station and watched them go. Looked back several times, waving a paw. Came to stand beside her. You know this story is going to spread across the entire territory, right? You've just made humans interesting to an entire alien species. Is that bad? Asked. Considered. I don't know yet, but I have a feeling this is only the beginning. She was right. Within a week, reports started coming in from other human colonies and stations. Humans were encountering and triggering the acknowledgement law, but now they weren't surprised. They were expecting it. They were testing it. And humans, being human, kept stopping to help. 3 months had passed since had treated. Life on Seven had returned to its normal routine, but the galaxy around them had changed. Reports flooded in from across human space, and each one told a similar story. On the trading station near, a human merchant named had stopped to help an elderly who was struggling to see. The old had cataracts clouding his eyes. Without thinking, had offered to guide to the medical center. The moment he touched the elder's arm and spoke words of concern, the acknowledgement law activated. Had spent 2 weeks arranging eye surgery for a he'd never met before. On a shipping route near the outer colonies, a human engineer named had encountered a broken-down vessel. She could have reported it and moved on. Instead, she stopped to ask if they needed help. 3 days later, after personally repairing their engine core, she continued her journey with a pack bond and a cargo hold full of gifts. The pattern was clear. Humans couldn't stop caring. Everywhere humans encountered, the same thing happened. Humans saw suffering or need and they stopped to help. Human Diplomatic Corps was having a crisis. We can't keep doing this, Ambassador shouted during a video conference with multiple human stations. His face filled monitor, red with frustration. Our people are getting bound by this acknowledgement law all across the galaxy. We'll be obligated to fix every problem forever. Attended the meeting as a consultant. She had become the human expert on culture, simply because she'd been the first to trigger the acknowledgement law. Ambassador said calmly, they aren't trying to trap us. They're genuinely surprised by our behavior. Most species have learned to avoid looking directly at a need. They've perfected the art of pretending not to notice. Then why can't we do the same? Ambassador demanded. Because we're human, said simply. We see suffering and we respond. It's automatic for us. We don't calculate whether helping will create obligation. We just help. Sitting beside added her perspective. I've been studying the reports. In every single case they have been grateful and respectful. They don't expect miracles. They expect honest effort. And Ambassador, the trade agreements we're signing with territories are incredibly favorable. They trust us in ways they don't trust other species. That's because we keep accidentally binding ourselves to their cultural laws, the Ambassador snapped. Or, said quietly, it's because we've shown them something rare in the galaxy, compassion without calculation. The meeting ended without resolution. Earth Command was studying the situation, trying to determine if the acknowledgement law was a diplomatic advantage or a trap. Had her own opinion. She'd spent 3 months learning everything she could about culture. She'd studied their history, their social structures, their values, and she discovered something important that she hadn't yet shared with anyone. That evening she sat in her quarters reviewing her research. The door chimed and his voice came through the speaker. "Friend, may I enter?" Opened the door. Had to duck to fit through the human-sized doorway. He had visited several times since healing, bringing information and building what he called pack knowledge between their species. "I need to understand something," said, gesturing for him to sit. Settled on the floor, which put him closer to eye level. "The acknowledgement law, it's not just about obligation, is it?" His ears perked up with interest. "What do you mean?" "I've been studying your culture's history," explained. "The acknowledgement law exists because yours was harsh. If someone fell, they needed help immediately or they'd die. So your ancestors created this law to ensure that anyone who saw would help." "This is correct," confirmed. "But there's more to it," continued. "The law doesn't require success. It requires trying. That's significant. It means the law isn't about results. It's about something else." His eyes gleamed. "You are learning, friend. What do you think it is about?" "Trust," said. "The acknowledgement law is about building trust. When someone sees suffering and tries to help, even if they fail, they've proven they can be trusted. They didn't turn away. They didn't pretend not to see. They acknowledged reality and acted on it." Made a sound that was like a purr mixed with a growl. It was approval. "Yes, the human humans understands. The law is not a trap. It is a test. Those who see and try are those who can be trusted. Those who see and turn away cannot be trusted. And those who avoid seeing at all," he paused, "they are not worth knowing. That's why other species avoid looking at injured," realized. "They failed the test long ago, and now they're just trying to avoid being tested again." "Yes," said, "but humans cannot avoid seeing. You look at the galaxy and you see everything. Other species have learned selective blindness. Humans have not." "Is that a good thing or a bad thing?" asked. "It is a powerful thing," replied. "Power can be either depending on how it is used." Before could respond, an urgent message flashed on her monitor. It was from marked Priority 1. Read it quickly, and her face went pale. "What is wrong?" asked, immediately alert. "A messenger has arrived with news," said, her voice shaking slightly. "The pack mother of the High Clan is dying. She has a condition your healers cannot treat, and she's looked at my image. She specifically chose to see me." Stood up so fast he nearly hit his head on the ceiling. "Pack mother has acknowledged you." "According to this message, yes. And now," looked at, "now the entire High Clan is waiting for me to come to you and try to help her." His expression was complicated. Surprise, concern, and something else couldn't identify. Pack Mother is the eldest of all. She is 200 cycles old. She remembers first contact with other species. She led us into the greater galaxy. If she has chosen to acknowledge you. "What does it mean?" asked. "It means she trusts you enough to see her in her weakness," said quietly. "This is an incredible honor, friend, but also an incredible burden. 300 of the High Clan will be waiting, watching, if you fail." I'm not a miracle worker," felt panic rising in her chest. "I treated one cub with a broken leg. I'm not qualified to treat the pack mother of your entire species." "Yet she has chosen to see you," said. "She could have closed her eyes and died in privacy. Instead, she looked at your image and acknowledged you. She has bound you to try." Burst into his quarters without knocking. "Absolutely not. You're not going. This is too much pressure. What if you fail? What if the pack mother dies despite your efforts? It could damage human relations permanently." "If she doesn't go," said coldly, It will damage relations immediately. Pack Mother has acknowledged her. To refuse is the ultimate dishonor. This is blackmail, shouted. This is culture, corrected. Your human stopped to help a cub. Now the greatest of all has seen that human and chosen to trust her. Will you prove that trust was misplaced? Stood up. Her mind was racing, but underneath the fear was something else. A sense of inevitability. This was why she'd become a doctor in the first place. Not for the easy cases, for the moments when someone needed help and she was the only one available. I'll go, said quietly. No, started. She saw me, Commander, interrupted. She chose to see me. How can I look away after that? Closed her eyes and took a deep breath. You realize what you're risking. Not just your own reputation, but Earth's entire relationship with the species. I understand, said. But I also understand that if I refuse to try, we lose that relationship anyway. The don't trust those who turn away from suffering. Approached and placed one massive paw on her shoulder. The gesture was gentle despite his size. I will take you myself. My ship leaves at dawn. Bring your assistants if they will come. You will need help. Looked at. What's wrong with Pack Mother? What are her symptoms? She has what we call crystal sickness, said. Something grows inside her bones. Every movement is agony. Our healers can do nothing. She has lived with this pain for 10 cycles, but now it is too much. His medical mind immediately started working. Something growing in the bones, calcification, mineral deposits. She needed more information. I'll need full medical scans, everything you have. It will be provided, promised. That night couldn't sleep. She lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling. In the morning, she would leave for she would face 300, all waiting for her to help their dying Pack Mother. A Pack Mother she had never met, who was dying of a disease didn't fully understand. In an alien body had limited experience treating. But the Pack Mother had seen her, had chosen to acknowledge her. And being human, couldn't turn away from that. The journey to the took 5 days through hyperspace. The ship was built for, which meant everything was twice the size was used to. She spent the journey in a converted cargo bay that served as her quarters, studying everything she could about Pack Mother's condition. Minu and had volunteered to come with her. Had wanted to come too, but someone had to stay and run the station. So the 3 humans traveled with, and his crew of 5 other through the dark between stars. On the second day, brought to the ship's common area. The other were there, and they all stared at her as she entered, gestured for her to sit on a raised platform that was probably meant as a table but worked as a chair for a human. Friend, began, I must tell you about Pack Mother so you understand what awaits you. Nodded, her tablet ready to take notes. She is 200 cycles old, said. In your human years, this is nearly 80. She is ancient by our standards. Most live only 150 cycles. That's impressive longevity, observed. She has lived through much, continued. She was young when we first encountered other species. She saw our people go from a single planet to members of the galactic community. She negotiated our first trade agreements. She established the protocols that allowed us to interact with species very different from ourselves. Another, a female named, spoke up. Pack Mother is not just our leader, she is our memory. She remembers the old ways and the new ways. She bridges past and future. The crystal sickness began 10 cycles ago, said. At first, it was just pain in her joints. We thought it was normal aging, but it grew worse. Mineral deposits began forming in her bones. Now her entire skeleton is slowly turning to crystal. Felt her stomach drop. That sounds like a condition we have in humans. It's called progressive ossification of soft tissue and bone. Can you cure it? Asked, her ears perked forward with hope. Hesitated, she had to be honest. In humans, we can't cure it. We can only manage the pain and slow the progression. If it's the same condition in biology, I need to be clear with you. I might not be able to save her. They were silent, then spoke. Pack Mother knows this. She did not ask you to cure her, she asked you to try. There is a difference. Why me? Asked. You could have asked any human doctor. There are better qualified people than me. She saw your image, explained. She saw the story of how you helped young. She saw that you did not promise miracles. You simply tried. She respects this. She wants someone who will be honest with her, not someone who will give false hope. Absorbed this. The weight of expectation was heavy, but somehow, knowing that honesty was valued more than success made it slightly more bearable. On the fifth day, they emerged from hyperspace looked out the viewport and gasped. The planet was beautiful and terrifying. It had deep red continents and blue-green oceans. The poles were covered in massive ice sheets, but what struck most was the scarring on the surface. Massive canyon systems, crater fields, evidence of a violent geological past. Your looks like it went through hell, Minyu said quietly, standing beside her. It did, said from behind them. Frequent volcanic activity, extreme temperature swings, predators that hunted in packs because nothing could survive alone. This is why the acknowledgement law exists. In such a place, to see suffering and turn away meant death for the entire pack. They landed at a massive complex built into the side of a mountain. It was the High Clan's territory, home to 300. As the ship's door opened, saw them waiting. 300 stood in organized formations. They were silent and still, watching as the humans descended the ramp. At the front stood a even larger than, with silver fur and scars that told stories of a long, hard life. I am, the Silver said through her translator, daughter of Pack Mother. I lead the High Clan in all matters except wisdom. For wisdom, we still turn to the Pack Mother. You are the human called. I am, said, trying to keep her voice steady. Studied her for a long moment. You are smaller than I expected, and you smell of fear. Decided honesty was best. I am afraid. I'm not sure I can help your Pack Mother, but she saw me and I could not turn away. His ears flattened in what now recognized as respect. You speak truth. Come, the Pack Mother is in great pain today. She waits to meet you. They were led deep into the mountain complex. The tunnels were wide and lit by bioluminescent crystals, moved through the corridors, stopping to watch as the humans passed, felt hundreds of eyes on her but nobody spoke. Finally, they reached a large chamber. It was carved from natural stone, with a high ceiling and a pool of water in the center. On a raised platform of smooth rock lay Pack Mother. She was massive, even larger than. Her fur was white with age, and her body was covered in scars from a lifetime of leadership. But what struck most was the way she moved. Every tiny shift of position was accompanied by a barely audible whimper. The Pack Mother was in constant agony. His eyes opened as approached. They were cloudy with age but still sharp with intelligence. She lifted her head slightly and could hear the grinding of crystallized bone. Small human, said, her voice rough but strong. I saw your image. I heard you fix the cub who would have died. I chose to see you. Will you try to help me? Walked closer, pulling out her medical scanner. Yes, Pack Mother, I will try, but I must be honest with you. I might not be able to cure you. I do not ask for cure, said. I ask for honesty and effort. Can you give me these? I can, promised. Then begin, said. The pack watches. Show them what humans do when they see suffering. Activated her scanner and began the examination. Helped her, setting up portable medical equipment they'd brought from 7. Minyu took notes, documenting everything. The scans revealed the extent of the damage. The crystal sickness had spread throughout skeleton. Her bones were being replaced by mineral deposits, fusing joints and making movement excruciating. It was exactly like the human condition had mentioned, but far more advanced. After 2 hours of scanning and testing, sat back. The entire High Clan had entered the chamber. 300 stood in silence, waiting for her verdict. Looked at Pack Mother. The ancient watched her with calm acceptance. Pack Mother said quietly, I cannot cure you. Thee is too advanced. It would be dishonest of me to promise otherwise." The chamber remained silent, could feel 300 pairs of eyes boring into her. But continued, "I can reduce your pain. I can give you comfort in your remaining time. I can make it so you can move without agony, speak without grinding bones, rest without screaming. I can give you peace in your final days. Will this be acceptable?" His eyes closed slowly. When they opened again, they were clearer somehow. The human speaks truth. The human does not promise the impossible. This is wisdom. She looked directly at with an intensity that was almost physical. "Yes, human who sees. Help me die without pain. Let me pass in peace, not screaming. Let me leave this world with dignity. Can you do this?" Felt tears prick her eyes. This was something she could do. "Yes, Pack Mother, I can do that." "Then you have my gratitude," said, "and my acknowledgement of you was correct. You are worth seeing." Over the next 2 weeks, worked tirelessly. She adapted human pain medications for biology, working with healers to combine human medicine with traditional herbs. She created a treatment protocol that could be administered by the clan's own healers. She sat with daily, monitoring her condition, adjusting doses, ensuring comfort. And in those quiet hours, Pack Mother talked. She told stories of the old days before they had left there. She spoke of the first contact with aliens, the fear and wonder of discovering they weren't alone. She shared wisdom about leadership, about pack bonds, about the cost of keeping a people safe. "You humans are strange," said one evening, her voice no longer strained with pain. "You see everything. Other species learned long ago to practice selective blindness, but you look at the galaxy and you cannot turn away from what you see." "Is that a weakness?" asked, adjusting an IV line. "It is power," said, "terrible power, because those who see cannot ignore. Those who see must act, and action changes the galaxy." On the 15th day, Pack Mother called the entire High Clan together one last time. With pain management, she could speak clearly, move carefully, and address her people without agony. She howled with her pack, her voice strong and clear for the first time in years. That night, withholding her massive paw, Pack Mother closed her eyes and stopped breathing. She died peacefully in her sleep, without pain. The silence that followed was absolute. The funeral rites for Pack Mother lasted 3 days, had never seen anything like it. Thousands of came from across the planet and beyond. They filled the mountain complex and spilled out onto the plains below. They howled together in waves of sound that made the stone walls vibrate. On the first day, they honored strength. Warriors told stories of battles fought and won. Leaders spoke of difficult decisions made with wisdom. The howling that followed each story was a song of respect and power. On the second day, they honored her leadership. From dozens of packs came forward to share how it helped them, guided them, or saved them. Some stories were hundreds of years old. The howling that day was deeper, filled with gratitude. On the third day, they honored her passing. But this day was different. The new Pack Mother stood before the assembled thousands and spoke about. "The human sat with our Pack Mother through her final days," announced, her voice carrying across the chamber through speakers. "The human could not cure the crystal sickness. No one could, but the human gave my mother something more precious. She gave her peace. She gave her dignity. She gave her the ability to leave this world without screaming." Turned to look directly at who stood near the back with Minyu, and the human is named Death Friend. This is among the highest honors we can give. To help a pack member pass with dignity is to honor the most fundamental truth of life. All things end, but how they end matters. The in the chamber began to howl. The sound was different from before. It was softer, sadder, but also warm, accepting. Felt tears running down her face. When the howling finally ended, made another announcement. This one would change everything. "We have learned something about humans," said, her voice strong and clear. "Other species in the galaxy have learned to avoid seeing in need. They turn their eyes away. They practice blindness because they fear the acknowledgement law will bind them. She paused, looking around at the thousands of assembled. But humans cannot do this. Humans look at suffering and their eyes cannot turn away. We have tested them across the galaxy. In every case, humans see and they stop. They acknowledge, and then they try to help. His ears flattened in the gesture of respect. We thought this was weakness. We thought humans were foolish for being so easily bound by our laws, but we were wrong. She began to pace, her movement drawing every eye. To see suffering and not look away, even when it costs you, even when you know you might fail, even when it binds you to duty, this is not weakness. This is the strongest possible expression of the pack bond itself. This is what our ancestors meant when they created the acknowledgement law. They meant that a true pack member cannot look away from suffering. Stopped and looked directly at again. Humans do not look away, even when they are not, even when it is not their pack, even when they could walk away with no dishonor. They stop, they see, they try. This makes them truer to the spirit of the acknowledgement law than many have been. The chamber erupted in discussion, turned to each other, growling and barking. Couldn't understand what they were saying, but the energy in the room had changed. Raised her paw for silence. Therefore, the High Clan makes this declaration, and we ask all other clans to accept it. Humans are granted pack-kin status across all territories. Gasps and howls echoed through the chamber. Minyu grabbed S's arm. "Do you know what that means?" he whispered urgently. Shook her head. She'd been learning culture, but this was new. Continued. Pack-kin means humans are considered honorary pack members. They may travel freely in space. They may trade without restriction. They may call upon pack bonds for aid. And most importantly, the acknowledgement law is modified for humans. The chamber went completely silent. Every was focused on its next words. Humans may acknowledge without obligation, declared. If a human sees a in need and chooses to simply observe, there is no dishonor. They are not bound. But if a human chooses to help, that help will be honored forever, remembered forever. Because when humans choose to help, they do so from the heart, not from obligation. His voice grew stronger. This is the truest form of the pack bond. Help given freely because one cannot look away because compassion demands it. This is what humans have shown us, and we will honor it. The howling that followed was like nothing had ever heard. It started low and built to a crescendo that seemed to shake the entire mountain. It was acceptance, celebration, welcome. When it finally ended, approached directly, the massive silver knelt so that her eyes were level with the humans. "My mother died in peace because of you," said softly. "For this, the High Clan is in your debt, but more than that, you have taught us something valuable. You have reminded us what the acknowledgement law was truly meant to honor, not obligation, but choice. The choice to see, the choice to care, the choice to try." Found her voice. "I only did what any human would do." "Exactly," said, "and that is why you are pack-kin now." The news spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Within weeks, every major news network was reporting on humanity's new status with the story of and pack mother became famous. But more importantly, things began to change. Other species started to reconsider their relationships with if humans could earn pack-kin status by simply being unable to look away from suffering, what did that say about species who had learned to practice blindness? Trade agreements between humans and flourished. Human doctors began working with healers, creating the first medical training programs. Young came to human universities to study. Young humans traveled to learn about pack culture. And everywhere the story was the same. Humans saw suffering and stopped to help, not because they had to, because they couldn't help themselves. 6 months after his death, returned to 7. The research station felt smaller now after spending time on but it was good to be back. On her first evening, she found a surprise waiting outside the station. Sat in the snow, now almost fully grown. The young's leg had healed perfectly, with only a slight limp that would fade with time. "Friend," called out, running toward her with enthusiasm, "I came to train with you." Laughed and hugged the young. "Train for what?" "To be a healer," said proudly. "Like you, I want to learn human medicine. I want to help both and humans. I want to be someone who cannot look away." Tears filled his eyes. "That's a wonderful goal." "Pack Mother said I should learn from the best," continued. "She said you are the one who started everything, the one who saw a cub limping and could not walk away. That evening stood outside the station with, watching the twin moons rise. Had arrived too, bringing supplies and news from the Menu and joined them, and they all stood together in comfortable silence. "You know," said finally, "the galaxy is changing because of what you did." Shook her head. "I just helped one injured cub." "No," corrected gently. "You saw suffering and acknowledged it when you could have walked away. You tried to help when you could have made excuses. You showed an entire species what it means to truly live the values they claim to hold." "Other species are learning from this," Minu added. "I've been reading the reports. Species that used to avoid are now approaching them carefully. They're trying to understand the acknowledgement law. They're trying to learn to see instead of practicing blindness." Smiled. "Humans are becoming famous for being the species that cares too much. It's actually kind of funny." "Is it really caring too much?" asked innocently. "Or is it caring the right amount and everyone else cares too little?" The question hung in the air. Thought about it. About how humans seemed compelled to help. About how they stopped at accidents. About how they rescued animals. About how they sent aid to disasters. About how they couldn't watch suffering without wanting to fix it. "Maybe," said slowly, "it's our evolutionary advantage. We survived on Earth by forming communities and helping each other. We built civilizations on the foundation of mutual care. We can't turn it off, even when it's inefficient, even when it costs us, even when it binds us to duty. We see, and we have to respond." "And now the galaxy sees you doing this," said, "and they must decide what kind of species they want to be. The ones who practice blindness, or the ones who choose to see." In the distance, a ship was landing at the trading post. More humans arriving. More interactions with, more chances for humans to see suffering and stop to help. Smiled. She thought about all the humans across the galaxy, encountering, triggering the acknowledgement law, and then trying their best to help. She thought about how this one simple act, stopping to help a limping cub, had rippled outward to change human relations forever. "You know what the funny thing is," said. "I didn't even think about it. I saw limping and I just moved. It was automatic." "That is the point," said. "You did not calculate. You did not weigh costs and benefits. You saw suffering and you responded. This is what makes humans unique. This is what makes you pack kin." Leaned against the side, the young's warmth comforting in the cold night. "Will you teach me to be like that, friend? To see and not look away?" Put her arm around. "I think you already know how. You learned it when you were the one suffering and I stopped to help. Now you want to pass that forward." "Yes," said firmly. "I want to be the one who stops, the one who sees, the one who tries." Above them, the stars glittered in the purple sky of 7. Somewhere out there, humans and were meeting, interacting, learning from each other. And everywhere they met, the same pattern repeated. Humans saw suffering and could not look away. It wasn't always perfect. Sometimes humans failed. Sometimes they couldn't help. Sometimes trying wasn't enough. But they always tried. They always saw. They always acknowledged. And the galaxy was slowly learning that this strange, soft species from a little blue planet had something precious, something rare, something powerful. The ability to see suffering and not turn away. The strength to acknowledge reality even when it was painful. The courage to try even when success wasn't guaranteed. And maybe, just maybe, that was what the galaxy needed most. Someone who could see. Looked up at the stars and smiled. Somewhere up there, another human was probably stopping to help someone in need. And tomorrow, she would teach how to do the same. The pack would grow, the bonds would strengthen, and humans in their strange, compassionate way would continue to see everything. Because they couldn't help themselves. And that, realized, was exactly as it should be.